Hello, how are you doing, my friends? I hope you're doing fine. The day of the DV results is coming closer and closer. And as it draws nigh, it is important that we discuss these things because after the selection, there are things that you'll do. Yesterday, we covered about the work history. And if you have not watched that video, you need to go back and watch it because we discussed to some extent about how to fill the work history and how it affects you. But today, as you can see, I want to discuss yet another important part of the DS260 form, and it is around the addresses. How are you supposed to fill the addresses? And we have three addresses or three types of addresses that we are supposed to fill on the DS260 form correctly. And these are the addresses that I'm going to discuss today. So we have the present address, we have the previous address or addresses, and we have the permanent address. These three addresses, they differ, and that's what we're going to discuss. So without further ado, let's start with the present address. On the present address section, we have these boxes to fill, and I want to go step at a time. The present address speaks of the place that you are currently residing at. That is where you live, where your residence is. That address is what is required of. Just stating where you live. Though KCC will never use a postal address to reach out to you, but it needs your physical address so that they may know where you are, your address. Now, some people ask, I don't have an address. Others, they don't even know about the address because the older address system in their countries, it's no longer functioning. Now, if you are there and you're wondering what you're going to use, you can use the address of the school around you. Maybe the school you attended, the school around you, you can use that address. You can use the address of your parents if they're living within the locality. You can use the address of your relatives or the address of your friend who is living near you. And it can be a postal address as well, as you can see here. So the first box, you fill your address. The second box, if you have an alternative of your address, if you have a secondary address, you can put it here, but it is optional. If you place one here, you don't need to place the other here. And then the city, the province, and if the province and the states, they don't apply, you just click do not apply. The postal code or the zip, if it does not apply, you just click does not apply. Then you put your country and the time you started living at your current address. You fill it here. So that is all about the present address. If you have more questions, please ask it on the comment section. And then we go to the next type of address. And this is the previous address. And there are issues around this. Now get this point. About your previous address, it is all the addresses that you have lived in since you turned 16. After 16 years of age, all the places that you've gone and lived, you need to add. And the point is not the places you have visited, maybe temporarily, just for a visit, for a temporal stay. No, the places that you have lived for some time. You have lived maybe for 1 year and above, you've settled there. That is the address that you use. Not a place that you've gone just to visit, like for a few months with no intention of living there or staying there. Those are not the address that are needed here. It is the address where you have moved and you have lived in for some time. And that would be places that you moved to go and work, or some places that you moved to go and study. And another thing to note is that if it is just within your city that you've just moved and relocated, shifted your locations, you are not supposed to alter that. That is not something to affect it. If you have moved from one country to the other, or from one province to another province, from one state to another state, and you've stayed there, those are the addresses that you fill. But if it is within just your city, you've just moved from one house to another house, you don't need to bother yourself with that. I hope you've understood that correctly. And then you fill all the information just as follows. And then you fill when you started living at that location and the time you moved out of that location. That is very important. And you can add another and another and another to as many locations you have lived in as possible. And then we go to the permanent address. The permanent address speaks of an address that is in the United States. That will be your address as you live in the United States or as you start life in the United States. And having said so, this is normally the address that your host gives you. So that means you need to have a host for you to fill this permanent address. But I'll give you a takeaway on that. But this is the host's address. And the permanent address is the address to which your documents will be sent when you go to the US. Your documents will be sent to that place because you are new. You don't have an identity in terms of address, and you need somewhere where your green card or your social security number and such documents will be sent to. So that's why you need an address of someone in the United States, and mostly it is the host for your documents to be sent to. And that's why I told you, as you're waiting for your results, you need to look for someone in the United States who will provide you with an address that is your host. But I said I'll give you something on that. It's not a must that you have a host for you to get a permanent address. Anyone in the United States, be it a student or anyone living there, so long as they have an address, they can give you this address and use it here. You should not have gotten a host, someone saying that he will be your host. It might be anyone living in the United States. If you can get an address in the United States, you can fill it here. And then later on, when you are about to go to the United States, then you can change your address to the one your host will give you. So you can get an address from the United States and fill it here and wait for some times later just to change it and update it. And that is to make you submit the DS260 form on time. This should not be an excuse that you were late in submitting the DS260 form. Just get anyone in the United States that can give you an address and then give you to fill it here. Another thing about the permanent address is this one here. Is this the address where you want your permanent resident card, green card, mailed? The answer should be yes, because this is the address that you have selected for your documents to be sent to. So your answer should be yes. But if you have an alternative, maybe you've thought of something else and you want it to go to some other location, then you can say no and then fill those address information in this box if you want your card to go to a different place. But if the permanent address that you filled earlier is the same place where you want your documents to be sent to, then you click yes, and that will be it. I hope you've gotten that point correctly. So that brings me to the end of the video today, and I hope you've gotten something about that. If you have questions regarding this section, post them on the comment section and I'll be more than glad to answer them. So stick around, many videos are coming, and please subscribe if you have not, and push the bell on. The bell will notify you whenever I put a video. Like the video, share with your friends, and let's meet in the next video.